2022 celebration of our new album, The Healing Power of 40 Hertz, Volume 3. This is the third in a series, and it's very unique because it's all about calming jazz ballads. So this is a whole new style of music in this series, and the challenge is, how do you do jazz and also contribute to the technology of 40 hertz sound therapy? And so today we're going to discuss all that. We're going to share with you the behind the scene, and we have with us my colleague and the executive producer of this series and the president of Metta Mindfulness Music, which is the record company that put all this beautiful music out there. And this is my dear friend Dr. Richard Gold. Hello, Rick.
Good morning, Yvonne. Good morning, everybody. So thanks so much for joining us. Actually, it's probably not morning where some of you are, but thank you for joining us.
Great. So we would like to start with the album trailer. These are 3 minutes that our associate producer, Zach Rosenblum, put together. And he did a wonderful job showing in 3.5 minutes what this new album is all about. So please enjoy this video, and then we will be back with our discussion. We've been using a cutting-edge technology called 40 Hertz sound therapy to create healing in the brain, to improve cognitive function, to improve memory, to overcome chronic pain. Recently, I came across a study of Johns Hopkins University about how jazz contributes to brain health. It's incredible how effective jazz music is on brain health. And so I decided to create calming jazz ballads in 40 hertz. So I sat down to write a couple of jazz ballads for piano. I worked with this incredible pianist named Ruslan Sirota, who's one of the greatest jazz piano players around. And he created magic when he came to the studio and started playing this music with all this counterpoint and tenderness and embellishments. I mean, it took the music to a whole new level. And then I wrote a duo for 2 guitars using the same jazz ballads that I wrote for the piano, but this time for the guitar. And I brought in Adam Del Monte, who's my favorite guitarist. And Adam came to the studio and recorded both guitar parts. And just very, very sweet versions of those jazz ballads. And I had Adam tune his guitar strings down to 40 hertz. And he was surprised with the sound of his own guitar at this new tuning. And he really liked it. He said, "Oh, wow, my guitar sounds beautiful." So you see right here in the green, this is the sound wave of the 40 hertz drones. These provide the vibration of 40 hertz and its overtones, the higher frequencies that are part of 40 hertz. And the blue is another layer of the same 40 hertz, just more of it. And then we have the binaural beats here in the gray, which we barely could hear. It's very low, and it creates the 40 hertz in the brain of the listener. Now the red, when we add the red sound waves, that's the piano. And now that we add the piano, we hear the whole thing. As far as we can tell, this is the very first jazz album ever released, ever recorded in 40 hertz. So enjoy these new jazz ballads for brain health. You can listen to it in headphones when you do your homework, when you study, when you do email, when you work. You can use it when friends come over for dinner. Use it whenever you wish to relax and improve your brain health. So we created this album with beautiful jazz ballads, but the real unique thing about this album is that it is endowed and invested with a lot of 40 hertz sound vibration, which is the whole point of putting this together with jazz. So I wanted to, first of all, learn a little bit more about what are the benefits of having 40 hertz vibration in this music. And as you notice in the album trailer, I demonstrated how there's 40 hertz vibration in the music. The piano and the guitars are playing some of the 40 hertz vibrations. There's also drone with 40 hertz, and there's also binaural beats which you can get through headphones, and the binaural beats, those pulsations, which we can talk more about it later, create another wave in the brain which is 40 hertz. We are entraining the brain to go to vibrate in 40 hertz if you listen to this music in headphones. And so why do we do that? Why did we invested so much 40 hertz vibrations into these music tracks? Because we learned that 40 hertz is good for us. And I wanted to ask my colleague, Dr. Gold, what do we know thus far from all the scientists that we looked at and all the studies that we looked at? Why 40 hertz is good for our brain?
Thank you, Yuval. I think I'll go back just a moment and say, for the first 10 plus years of our work together, we've been creating music to deepen meditative states, taking people from beta, which is what we're conversing in now, down through alpha, delta, and theta. And this has been a marvelous experience, and we've had tremendous response to our music. I was invited to a casual lunch by the president of a grad school I'm involved with here. I'm on the board of directors, and I met two individuals, Dr. Jeffrey Martin and Dr. Sanjay Manchada. We were talking about sound healing, which is certainly a blooming and blossoming and deepening realm of scientific inquiry and public acceptance. And Sanjay turned to me and he said, "Have you been looking into 40 hertz?" And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I liken it a little bit to like being in a dream, and there's a room in a familiar house, and you go into that room and it's a whole unexpected territory that you never anticipated. Mm-hmm. So when Yuval and I then discussed this and we started to do our own research, we were just astounded with what is coming out of research about 40 hertz in the gamma wave realm that's being done by very renowned scientists at MIT, Johns Hopkins, and University of Wisconsin, amongst other places. And it's not just in the gamma waves. Within gamma waves, there's 40 hertz. There's something, I'm going to use the word almost magical about it. And what it does is it helps with our cognition. We know that gamma helps with concentration, problem solving, and research has shown now that it's very good even for pain. And research that's being done here in San Diego at UCSD Medical School, they're seeing gamma waves effect on helping schizophrenics become more integrated in their function. And that's what we see, that 40 hertz entrainment in the brain helps an integration of help and a consolidation of memories and thought and even consciousness. And so when we learned about this, we took a turn within our production and we started to emphasize 40 hertz. And the excitement just continues. We're deepening. And then even more recent research coming out of Johns Hopkins talked about jazz and jazz effect on cognition and jazz effect on emotions. And all of this falls into the realm of neuroplasticity, which is a whole new idea. We used to think that at 24, our brains sort of when time lapse, this froze in terms of development. And with neuroplasticity, we realize, especially with functional MRI technology, that our brains are vibrant, elastic, changing entities of our being. Mm-hmm. And with conscious effort and direct stimulation of the brain through activities, through music, through nutrition, our brains can continue to evolve and to continue to become stronger and more healthy. And I think the impact of this is especially important potentially now because we're in the midst of a tidal wave of cognitive decline in our population. And usually when it's diagnosed or becomes evident to the individual or the individual's family members, almost too much water has been run under the bridge. And this is an area we want to look at in our research collaborations with scientists, is even if there's already early signs of memory loss and cognitive decline, can we reverse that? But even more important is to prevent it. That's the root of my work in Chinese medicine mostly is prevention and health maintenance. And so this opens up a tremendous potential, and we're so grateful to be at the forefront of this. And the other thing I'd like to mention is what we've seen in research is when they're using 40 hertz stimulation, either through light, especially through sound, it's just often just a clicking sound, which becomes a nuisance, especially if you want to do a set amount of time, which is usually at least a minimum of 20 minutes to start to have effect on the brain. And we thought, why not create a high level of music, beautiful compositions played by expert musicians, to bring 40 hertz to the general public. And as Yuval explained a little bit more, our second production, we used Middle Eastern, East Asian, and Indian style of music, which we love, many people love, but it doesn't necessarily reach into the heart of and mind of a lot of people. So then we switched to piano and classical guitar, which is going to be resonant for even a broader population. Yeah. So that in a little nutshell is where we stand right now. We're so thrilled to be able to offer this new music to the worldwide community.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Thank you. I wanted to share with the audience the evolution of the music for this album. So yes, when you listen to it, it sounds like jazz ballads, but the root of this music is actually coming from India, because the compositions, the melodies that I composed are composed in healing ragas, musical modes from India, which were given to me by Master Pandit Gayan Ghosh from Mumbai in India, and he is a master sitar player that we've been working on for years, and he advised me to use particular musical modes that have been used in India for thousands of years to heal, to calm, to help people sleep, and to help people relax. And so we chose these musical modes for the new compositions that I composed. But then the question is how you go from this classical Indian style music to jazz. And that's what I'd like to share with you now as I share a screen. And I'll give you a little bit of a sense of this journey, musical journey. So I'm going to share a screen now. I hope all of you will be able to see this. So this is just a browser. I'm going to take you to the website of Metta Mindfulness Music. Metta is spelled with two T's, as you can see. Metta, which means loving kindness in Sanskrit. MettaMindfulnessmusic.com. When you go there, you see those 5 round gold shapes with different categories of healing music, and one of them is brain health right here, second from the right. So if I click on brain health, I see that on the top of the page, these are the 3 40 hertz music albums that we put out. The first one was called Healing Powers 40 Hertz Volume 1, and this is music that I composed for Chinese medicine originally, and we converted it to 40 hertz digitally. Then in Volume 2, we created this music based on Indian ragas. So if I click on that, I go to the page and I see a video, and I'm going to go to another tab to show you just a segment of this video. This is Master Pandit Nayan Ghosh, which I had the privilege of working with on several projects. And here he's playing the composition that I wrote for him using the healing musical mode ragas that he recommended that I would use. So these were the melodies that I started with. And if you noticed, in this music, there's no harmonies. There are no jazz harmonies. There's no pop harmonies. There's just melody and drone. And so the ragas that I use, one of them is called Shuddha Rag, and it has a unique note, which is the fourth note. 1, 2, 3, 4. That note is unusual. We expect that the fourth note would be an A natural here. That is the note that we used to in major scales. This is the famous Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do. But in this healing raga, the fourth note goes to a different place. It's almost like a question mark. And then it continues the same way. But that opens the door to a whole other kind of combinations of sounds. And in Western culture, this mode is called the Lydian mode. Lydian mode, which is rarely used in jazz or in classical music or in, it's never used in pop and rock. But very, very rarely you may find it in jazz and classical music in the West. But in the classical music of India, it's very common mode, and it's used for healing. So I wrote the melody, which I'm going to play for you. This is for the piece called Floating Piece. Floating Piece goes like this. So the bass is 40 hertz. You can hear it in the sound as a drone in the music track. But right now I'm just playing it on the piano. That's the bass. And then the melody goes... And then it goes to, that's that strange note. So you see there's a little strangeness, a little wonder, a little hypnotic element in this mode. And so these were the melodies that I composed for Volume 2. Which was recorded by Pandit Nayan Ghosh in Mumbai and by the Persian musicians and by another great master, Yusuf Suhail Khan, who came to my studio, and we created Volume 2. But then the challenge was to take this into jazz. And in order to make jazz out of that, I had to create harmonies. I had to write some new chords that were not there before. So I looked at the melody, and based on my training in jazz, I started adding chords to that. And then suddenly it started to become a piano ballad that has a jazzy element to it. But because of that one strange note, that note some of the chords are not what you expect. And some people that listened to this album told me, oh, it sounds like jazz ballads, but every once in a while, there's something different. The music doesn't go where we expected it to go. It sounds like jazz ballad, but then suddenly it surprised us. It didn't resolve, or it didn't go to the right place that we would expect. And those moments are unique because we started with the classical Indian ragas that have some unique notes that you wouldn't have in the Western scales. And that's what makes this album not a super 100% traditional jazz ballads, but I would say it's contemporary jazz ballads. It has a lot of tradition of jazz. It sounds like jazz ballads, but every once in a while there's something that is a little different, and that's what makes it contemporary. It wouldn't be allowed in the old days, if you would write a mainstream, straight-ahead jazz ballad following all the rules of Western harmony. And so that's the contemporary element here. I was very fortunate to be introduced to a wonderful pianist named Ruslan Sirota, and he's an incredible Grammy-winning jazz pianist, originally from the Ukraine. He was born and raised in the Ukraine. Then in his teens, he went to Israel with his family. They immigrated to Israel, and then he studied jazz and classical music there, mostly with Russian teachers in Israel. And then he received a scholarship to come to Berklee College of Music, where I went years ago. And Ruslan studied jazz in Berklee College, and right after he came and met Stanley Clarke and Chick Corea and the top jazz masters in the field, and he started touring with them, and he became part of the Stanley Clarke band. And he's an incredible genius when it comes to the piano, and he took these compositions and brought it to life. And of course, Adam Del Monte, the guitarist, is a master guitarist that I always enjoy working because his sound, his musicality, his virtuoso ability to play any style on the classical guitar, from flamenco to classical to light jazz, like what we did. It was an interesting experience to hear him play on his beloved guitar for the first time tuned to 40 hertz. He never ever heard his beloved guitar resonating in this alternative tuning. And it's lower than any other tuning that he ever tried. And I was very, very pleased that he loved the sound. He liked what he heard. And it's not just what you hear, the tension of the strings is less tense than the normal tuning of the guitar. So the strings are softer to the touch. There's different kind of tension, different kind of feel. And this is all part of the vibration that you are receiving when you listen to this music. I really enjoy listening to this music. I put it in the background when we have dinner. I put it in my studio when I work. Very soothing, very beautiful. I hope you all going to be enjoying this. And I wanted to ask my colleague, Dr. Gold, how he uses this music, particularly this album. Rick, when do you listen to it? How do you listen to it? Do you listen to it through speakers or through headphones or both? Or when? What is the range of usages that you experienced?
Certainly. I'd like to add one thing to add to your discussion before I answer that question, which is Nayan Ghosh tuned an entire sitar to 40 hertz for us, which is no easy task. Likewise, Adam tuned his guitar to 40 hertz. Our cello player tuned his cello, and this cello play. The actual cello itself is from the 18th century. I mean, it was around when Beethoven was around. This is a living antique And he loved the sound of his cello when it was played at 40 hertz. So our musicians contributed so much besides their playing, but their willingness to do something new. And I'll have Yuval in a little bit talk about how, even though there's not a 40 hertz key on a piano, how Ruslan was able to play in 40 hertz. Now, for myself, I use this music like you do as a background music. I find myself humming it when I'm working in my garden. It's just absolutely delightful. I use it during meditation periods to help. And when I do that, I always use headphones. I play it through the sound system at my acupuncture clinic along part of a playlist, which includes other of our music, to help facilitate the healing environment. And you can feel when it comes on, the vibration changes, and it's very, very delightful. I think because of the way it helps with concentration, people preparing for tests, I'd recommend that, certainly. And then in a broader sense, as I mentioned previously, we'd like to see this music introduced in nursing homes and care homes, and just get more of a general use to start to bring the potential for neuroplasticity to a higher level. And it's like receiving healing energy without necessarily making a big deal out of it. It just becomes ambient, but the effect can be very, very, very profound.
I would like to invite everybody who are watching to ask us any question about this project that comes to mind. You can write a comment in YouTube below the screen. There's a place for comments. Just put in a question anytime during this program, and our producer Zach will pick up your comments and ask us the questions during this event. I wanted to mention my assistant Harry who worked with me on these adaptations for jazz, and Harry helped with some of the harmonies, and he is a film composer, a very talented film composer, and he studied jazz in Berklee College, just like I studied jazz in Berklee College. And he's a very good jazz guitarist and all that, and he was trained in all the jazz history. And then when he worked on these arrangements with me, there were a few places that he got stuck, where he said, but this chord doesn't fit, and this chord doesn't sound right, and this chord wouldn't flow well. And there was places where the normal jazz chords or the normal jazz progressions just wouldn't work. And he didn't know, I didn't tell him that the melody I composed based on classical Indian ragas. He didn't know that. And then when I revealed it to him, and I showed him where those special moments where it was difficult and challenging to find the jazz harmony for, that had to do with the nature of the musical mode from India, raga, which was not familiar to him, and it's something that he didn't really spend time in school on. So that was interesting, and we had fun putting this together, Harry and I. And I'd like to mention two more important people. First of all, Zach Rosenblum, who worked with me on this album. He's our associate producer, and he's a great jazz trombonist and a composer. And he helped editing the music and bringing it to this shape. And also, interestingly enough, my friend Peter Gordon, who went to Berklee College with me many years ago, he's a wonderful flutist, a jazz flutist, and we played a couple of concerts together over the years, and he recorded in my studio on one or two projects. And when I got to work on the guitar duos, see, first I recorded the piano with Ruslan, and the piano was just a full meal. It was beautiful. It was complete. And then I went to work on the guitar parts. Now, the guitar parts, I broke it to two guitars. Instead of, taking the one piano, to two guitars was very appropriate, because the piano is a giant instrument. The guitar, the range of the guitar is about half of the range of the piano. So two guitars could kind of cover what the piano offered. And so I had two guitars, two guitar parts. Adam recorded the first guitar part, then he recorded the second guitar part, and the whole thing was complete. I worked on it, editing it, mixing it. And as I was listening, going back and forth between the piano versions and the guitar versions, and the piano versions and the guitar versions, and thinking about how I'm going to sequence it. Should the album have half an hour of piano and then half an hour of guitar? Or should we take the three guitar tracks and the three piano tracks and sandwich them into weaving kind of pattern, going back and forth from one piano track to guitar track to piano track to guitar track? And as I was listening and thinking about what feels right to me, I start feeling that something is missing in the guitar tracks. There was just one little color that I wanted to add. It was like just adding a little salt or adding a little bit of sugar powder on top of a cake. It was something really, really, really small, nuanced, but I needed to add a little color to break the continuous sound of the guitars. And I thought about the flute. I thought first about Bansuri flute, the wooden flute from India. And Peter plays Bansuri flute, and so he sat down to play it with his Bansuri flute, and it worked. And he had to tune his flute down just by using his mouth position. And the Bansuri flute is just a piece of wood. There's no mechanism there. There's no two pieces that you can put together. It's just one cut wood. And so it was very hard to play it in a lower tune than the normal. And so we upped to the alto flute, because the alto flute is a warm flute, and it's made from two different metal parts. And when you put the two metal parts together, you can pull them apart a little bit, which makes it a little longer. And in acoustic science, the longer the pipe, the lower the note. So if you have a clarinet, you can put the clarinet, one clarinet is made from four parts or three parts that you screw together in order to play the clarinet. And then that's why a big clarinet can be packed into a small case that you can carry, because you break the clarinet apart to three parts and then you screw them back together. Now, with this clarinet and other instruments, if you don't screw it all the way and you just screw it a little bit open, practically you're making the clarinet a tiny bit longer, because you didn't screw it all the way. The same thing with the flute. With the alto flute, you could put it a little bit opened and not all the way, and that makes it longer and lower in pitch, just to the place where it's 40 hertz. And Peter, to record these flute parts, he had to have his tuner, his digital tuner in front of him in the recording, and he had to look all the time at the tuner and use his ear to stay throughout the recording, to stay in the tuning of 40 hertz, which is very challenging. And he did it, and Zach worked on these tracks, editing them and choosing the best moments, and then I edited it in the mix just where I needed that special flavor. So you hear the guitar, and suddenly a flute comes in, adding a little color, and the flute goes out, the guitar continue, and then once in a while, occasionally, a little sound of the flute kind of pulling it up to the air element, and that made it complete for me. And it's really something that is an aesthetic decision that I can't really explain further with more words. It's a matter of taste, it's a matter of flair, it's a matter of aesthetic decision of the artist. And just like you decide how much sugar to put in your tea, one person wants one person drinks it with no sugar, black tea with no sugar, and it's perfect. Another person needs just half a teaspoon makes the tea perfect, and another person needs 1 spoon. And some people that drink a cup of tea with 4 teaspoons of sugar. Can you believe that? But I've seen that, not in the West, but in the Middle East. But some people like it that way. And so that what happened with the flute in these tracks. And so enjoy the music. Use it for yourself, for your friends, for your family. You can get the best version, the full vibrational music, the full sound, only in one place, in MettaMindfulnessmusic.com, because that site is the only site that provides the full high quality audio. So it's just like when you get low quality video or low quality low res photo that is not sharp, that is what you're getting on all the music stores online, all the streaming services, Apple Music, Google Music, YouTube Music, Spotify. It's all low quality MP3 streaming sound, and that's like low res photo, grainy, without the depth, without all the image. The same thing with sound. So the high quality CD quality WAV files, it's called WAV, W-A-V, without the E, W-A-V. That's the name of the kind of the file that you could get from Metta Mindfulness Music. You can get the MP3, the low quality version from all the streaming services online. But I recommend that you get the high quality because it has the full vibration, the full amount of 40 hertz vibration, the full amount of depth and beauty of the musical instruments. And that's really what we ought to listen to and to receive in our body, the full vibration. I'd like to open it to questions from our listeners, from our viewers. Zach, do we have any questions from any listener?
Yes. Leon wants to know, does only 40 hertz work, or do its harmonics also work for brain health?
That's very interesting. So every note in music, for example, if I play this note, that's 40 hertz. If I were to tune my piano to 40 hertz, right now it's at Western tuning, A equals 440 hertz. So it's not exactly 40 hertz, but this would be the 40 hertz note. That note, even though we don't notice, includes higher notes that ringing in it. And these are the higher notes. Etc., etc. And it keeps going higher and higher and higher. It's part of the tone. Leon is asking, is the benefit for brain health is just from the fundamental, we call it the fundamental note, the basic 40 hertz note, or also the higher frequencies? Well, one of the doctors that we worked with, Dr. Sanjay Manjada, told me to also use the higher harmonics, because he felt that the higher harmonics are part of the 40 hertz, and so the part of the whole is important. It's like somebody tells you, eat carrots, eat the whole carrot. Don't just isolate it to the vitamin B and just take vitamin B. There's some magic in nature of elements that are all mixed together in nature. The same thing in music. The note E1, which is the 40 hertz, if you tune it to 40 hertz, includes other vibrations, and those other vibrations are part of the magic as far as we assume based on our experience. And so, yes, you need 40 hertz, and you can also add to it the higher harmonics. But don't lose the 40 hertz, because the 40 hertz is the fundamental and is the most important vibration. Zach, do we have another question from anybody?
Yes. Peter would would like to know, how does jazz music add to the brain health benefits of the album? Is it different from just the binaural beats?
Okay, this is really interesting. On our website, on mettamindfulnessmusic.com, there's a tab on the homepage. There's a tab called Learn. And if you click on Learn, down in that menu, there's something called Research, I believe. And then there's a link to a study by Johns Hopkins University about jazz. And I'm going to show it to you right now. I'm going to share screen. And so when you go to the home page and you go to the top navigation bar, you see it says Learn here. Learn. You click on Learn, and then down in the bottom of that menu it says Research. You click on Research, and then on the top there's scientific research from Johns Hopkins University, research on jazz positive impact on brain health, sleep, and well-being. And there's also the research about 40 hertz below. So you're welcome to check it out and read in details. But I would say, just in short, that in the studies, they saw that people that listen to jazz and were involved in making jazz music improved their cognitive function, their memory improved, their motoric functions improved, and so this is a wonderful tool. They don't know why it's doing the good, but I would assume, I would make an assumption that based on my knowledge in different musical tradition, jazz is one of the most complex music that there is, that ever been created by a human being, because of the rhythmic complexity, the syncopation, the melodic complexity, and harmonic complexity. So in classical Indian music, for example, there's complexity in melody, there's complexity in rhythm, but there's no harmony, absolutely no harmony. There's just a drone. So that is a very simple form of harmony. In classical Western music, most classical Western music, you may have complexity in melody, complexity in harmony, but not as much complexity in rhythms, unless it's 20th century music. But until the 20th century, all the repertoire, all the music that was written before the 20th century in Western classical music, the rhythms are relatively simple compared with jazz. So jazz has the complexity in all three elements of music. In the melody there's complexity, in the harmony there's complexity. Harmony of jazz is much more complex than folk tunes, rock, and pop. And when you go to Middle Eastern music and Indian music and Chinese music, there's no harmony at all. So jazz is providing to the brain incredible complexity of stimuli, of information that is triggering a lot of parts of the brain. It's really, really, really heavy duty stuff for the brain. And so we know from other studies that if we provide the brain with challenges, with complexity, with sophistication, it is contributing to brain health. It makes our brain better. If we feed our brain simplistic notions, no challenges, no stimuli, the brain does not develop, the brain is not going to be healthy. And so jazz has all those answers. Thank you for the question, Peter. Zach, any other questions?
That looks to be it.
Okay, good. I want to mention one more question that I received from my daughter. My daughter watched the album trailer and she saw Ruslan playing the digital piano in my studio, recording this album on the digital piano. And she said, "What? You didn't have a real piano for Ruslan? You didn't record it on a real piano?" And then I said, "Okay, that's an interesting question. Do you know how many strings are in the real piano?" there are hundreds of strings because each note is doubled 3 times, except for the very, very low bass notes. They may be doubled only twice. But all the other notes on the piano have 3 strings inside the piano tuned to the same note. So you know that we have 88 keys, 88 notes on the piano. If you multiply it by 3, you're going to get close to 300 strings. So it's a little bit less than 300, but it's close to 300 strings. So just let's round it off to 300. Imagine tuning 300 strings down to 40 hertz. And you know, when you tune strings down, they don't stay there. They keep going out, and you need to have the piano tuner tune it back to the place and back to the place. It may take a few hours or a few days for the piano to stabilize. And who would do the tuning and the fine tuning? A professional piano tuner. So it's basically an impossible job unless you have enormous amount of money to pay the piano tuner to work on that piano. And so Ruslan and I decided to use a digital sampled piano library that he is the representative of. He demonstrates this library, and it's called Soundscape, and they have a LA film piano series which was created specifically for the film music community in Los Angeles. It's a very, 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 very incredible and large digital recording library of all the different sounds of every note on the piano, of the real piano, recorded and programmed into a computer. And Ruslan used that when he played the digital keys. So the sound is the sound of a real piano, but it's triggered from the digital keys. We are discussing right now for our next album, which is Volume 4, which is going to be focused on another kind of music, another style of music tradition. We are discussing recording the first ever recorded piano piece for a piano that would actually going to be tuned down to 40 hertz, all 300 strings. And so it's looking promising. It's looking, the partners that we are talking with are excited about it, and they allocated 2 piano technicians, expert piano technicians, tuners, to work on this project with us in the coming year. And so as soon as this is going to be ready, we're going to let you know, and about the other exciting projects that we are working on. So before we see the album trailer one more time as a goodbye and a farewell, I'd like to ask my colleague Dr. Gold for any parting shot about 40 hertz jazz ballads. What would you like to leave us with?
Maybe I'd like to say is just thank you, Yuval, for a masterclass in music theory. Even though we talk to each other all the time and work together all the time, you always have something to elucidate and illuminate for me. So I really appreciate it. I hope that our listeners live or that are going to see this recorded on our YouTube channel will benefit from this. It was really marvelous, and it really is inspirational. So thank you. Thank you, Zach, for your technical work behind it, and thank everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoy this music as much as we do.
Thank you very much, Rick. Thank you for supporting this project. And I remember when I came to you with this crazy idea of jazz ballads in 40 hertz, this is our first project that we go out of the drone formula, the drone world music style, and you were open and supportive of this idea. So I'm grateful for your continuous support for what we create. And really caring about Metta, loving kindness, and in double T, Metta. Your care and your sustain for Metta, to put out Metta to the world through this work is really something that I cherish and appreciate. So thank you.